Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over Bitcoin and why right now Bitcoin probably will be more relevant than it will if I had posted this at any other point in time. So with that being said, let's get it. Okay, so as you guys can see, Bitcoin had a major rebound today. Well, I wouldn't call it major, but it was substantial enough to where I'm not the only one that noticed it. You guys can see even a lot of the altcoins have actually popped off quite a bit too. And as well as the Grayscale Trust, you can see quite a few of them double-digit gains. We went over that earlier. I will go over that again for you guys tomorrow before the market open. But I do also want to point out these absolutely bonkers numbers on the Bitcoin miners, okay? So 16.6% on HUD 8, nearly 40% on BTPT. Anybody that was holding BTPT before this point, congrats, dude. You were rolling in the money. Or if you're a girl, whatever. And then basically the rest of them are either flat and or down slightly. I'm not really liking the underperformance of CLSK. I don't know what's going on here. Maybe a high short interest or something like that. But that kind of grates my skin a little bit. But it is what it is. Just gonna have to be patient, I suppose. So we'll get into the charts here in a minute. But first, I want to talk about the major indicators on Bitcoin. So for the first time in a long time, we have seen now the Fear and Greed Index finally, it seems like it's taken eons, finally hit the Fear Index, okay? Or the Fear side of the index, I should say. So last month we were at 75. Last week we were at 74. Yesterday neutral, and today in the Fear zone. So we have hit it for the first time in eons, it seems, roughly about a 30 Fear. Now this could go deeper. It could kind of range around in between, well, any of this area really. I was suspecting that we were going to get a pullback in time and range between 50 and 100, but this is crypto. Anything is possible. Just expect the unexpected. Things can always turn on a dime at any point in time. It's not just the whales anymore in the crypto space. It's now also institutions. So as you guys can see, we have dropped off a cliff, just absolutely tanked from an 80. Which again, anything above a 70, if you guys know, or you guys have seen this channel for a while, you guys know that we think that anything above a 70 to 100 is considered to be very expensive and overbought. That's a bearish signal, meaning there could likely be a major pullback on the horizon. So now we've seen that play out here. Anytime, in my opinion, we're below a 30, this is basically the same thing as the RSI metrics. So anything above a 70 overbought, anything below a 30 is oversold. Same concept here. So anything 30 or lower, in my opinion, is a steal in crypto. Could it always go lower? Absolutely. Bitcoin could always go lower, but I'll point out some things to you guys in today's video that will give you guys an idea of why I think that Bitcoin and crypto is about to go up again here in the immediate short term. So we are looking a little bit more bullish now that this is at a 30. I would say it now potentially has the room to run up again. Whether that's going to be immediate or not, we'll find out in the coming days. So the search term crypto over the last 5 years is still relatively low. The major key point here to point out is that this is a 5-year time frame. Okay, so it covers an entire cycle from the bear market year all the way to the recovery year to the 2 bull market years. And in terms of the last 5 years, we are currently sitting at pretty much more or less all-time lows. I mean, the lowest point we were at was at a 10. We're currently at a 13. So when we're at a peak, we're usually somewhere between roughly about a 70 to 100. As you guys can see, the 2 major peaks back here. Same thing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a little bit higher, but of course, Bitcoin got the spot Bitcoin ETF, so that kind of changes things a little bit. But even at the low point, we were at a 12 on Bitcoin. You can see we're currently at a 21. So technically, Bitcoin really is not, in my opinion, based on this metric, not really even all that overbought. So again, the kind of major warning flag, major sell signal we're looking for here is for this search term to get anywhere between an 80 to 100 or 70 to 100. Even I would say if we see something like that, then I mean, we personally will consider just offloading the boat. You can kind of see the different states that are interested in here, so that's pretty curious. Nevada's at the top of the list there. So MVRV score, this thing has kind of dipped a little bit, so that's bullish. I was generally bullish on this chart anyways, because usually unless we get into the light or dark pink box, which is a major sell signal in my opinion, I just honestly think that this is undervalued. Like even back here in November, when we saw the 3.3, 3.5 signal on Bitcoin, I think that Bitcoin's bull run was cut short at 69K because the Fed came out and said they were going to raise rates. If that didn't happen, in my opinion, Bitcoin probably would have still kept running. Now, November of the post-halving year, usually that is the time, roughly November, December, that it's supposed to dump. So the cycle timing is right. But again, this metric is just, it kind of throws me for a loop because I feel like this metric should have actually been higher than this previous peak because the peak was higher, but it wasn't. So all in all, MVRV is still very bullish on this chart. I still think we're undervalued according to this metric. Same with this one. So this is at a buy. It's pretty much, two levels from the bottom. So the bottom is Bitcoin is dead, and then basically a fire sale after that. I mean, we've only really moved up 2 levels since the bear market bottom. Granted, Bitcoin has moved up in price a lot, but I'll say before what I said, or I should say, I'll say again what I said before. I think if we get anywhere to roughly about the HODL to is this a bubble level, somewhere in between still cheap and is this a bubble, that could potentially be an early warning sign to get out of the markets. So if I just take a look at, we'll say maybe October of next year. So the HODL area, if I look down here, you see that still cheap is 201,000. HODL is roughly about 270,000, and then 370,000 would be, is this a bubble? I mean, Bitcoin could really go higher than that. It's possible, but you got to understand the higher this thing goes, the faster it goes, the likelier of a steeper correction there's going to be. So if it goes to 500,000, don't be surprised if it goes to from 500,000 down to 250,000 before it pumps again. Like I said, usually when you see that like just straight up moonshot, that usually means that a massive crash is coming afterwards. We haven't seen that in the chart of Bitcoin, but if you see something like that, just understand technically that usually means a big pump, big dump, right? So new bull, this one's still kind of expensive in my opinion, but I mean, again, the price of Bitcoin is being propped up by a lot of these spot Bitcoin ETFs, the big institutions with their endless money buying the Bitcoins. So it's kind of a skewed metric, but in my opinion, this is a little bit bearish. So we got the pullback in time and also the slight pullback as well. So Pi cycle top indicator, it has dipped below the yellow line. As you guys can see, the yellow line is at 66,000. The current price is 63,000. This is, as you guys can see, on a 24-hour time frame. So I'm pretty confident at this point it has confirmed below the yellow EMA. But the point I want to make here is not so much that dipping below the yellow EMA really matters, because even in 2017, we did have a small dip below and then we took off like a rocket ship. Same thing back in 2012. You can see we just barely poked below it and then boom, took off like a rocket ship. In 2020, we never actually got below it, but we did test it many times. And back here during the bear market, we did at the lowest point, we did actually, or not quite the lowest point. Actually, yeah, even at the lowest point. So even at the lowest point, and then here before we took off for 50K, we did spend a little bit of time just slightly below the yellow EMA. The thing I want to point out here is that we're not above the green EMA, okay? So if we get above the green EMA, that's how we know that likely the last phase of the bull run is in play. Every time we see this happen, that's usually when Bitcoin has its most explosive move to the upside. Okay, it happened here, it happened here, and it happened back here in 2013, and also back here in early 2013 as well. So if we see the price of Bitcoin get above the green EMA, that's the time to be like, okay, the end of the bull market is near. It might be potentially just right around the corner, like, maybe 3, 4, 6 months out. Okay, so I want to point something out on Bitcoin that we have not seen in a very long time. So look down here on the RSI. You guys can see that the RSI did actually hit below 30. barely, but it hit below 30. Okay. So at the lowest point, we were at a 25 here. I actually need to move this up a little bit so you guys can really see it. The other thing I want to point out about the Bitcoin chart in this move is, and we're on the daily time frame, mind you, but you can see this really, really long trend line we got here. So it tested back here in October 2023, January 2024. So the last time we actually tested this was nearly 6 months ago, and yet again we are testing it. But that's actually not what I want to point out, okay? The thing that I want to point out is this all the way back here. So the last time we got a test of the RSI on the oversold territory, the last time we got this was back here at 25,000, okay? And funnily enough, we actually tested this lower trend line here. It's not the same trend line, but it is still a macro trend line. Both of these two trend lines here are macro trend lines. The last time we tested this trend line, which ultimately ended up starting this new one, we did also hit oversold territory. The thing I want to point out here about Bitcoin is when we did test from oversold, this isn't going to be exactly perfect, but you guys can see the move up was absolutely insane. It was a 189% move, so we went from 25 to nearly 75,000 based on that oversold indicator. The last time before that we were actually oversold was back here in March of 2023. What happened? We had a massive move from 20,000 all the way to 30,000. So that's a 33 or 35, somewhere in there, roughly about percent increase. And then one last time here during the bear market lows, as you guys can see, 15K. The immediate move up from that point was from 15 to 25,000. So I don't know the math right off the top of my head, but it's a lot. It's like, I don't know exactly, like maybe 40% or something like that. So the thing I want to point out here that people really need to understand is since the bear market lows, since roughly about a year and a half ago, we have only seen Bitcoin hit oversold territory 4 times, okay? Only 4 times. That's it. Even back here during the basically bear trend that we saw, we hit oversold, and guess what? Bitcoin took off to the upside. Now, there is a difference here. During this bear market move down, we were below the EMAs at that point and tried to come back above it and failed. The difference between then and now is that we're actually in a bull trend. Yes, technically we are. We are technically below the EMAs at this point, but again, we are above this macro trend line. This is still technically a bull trend. The only way that I would say that potentially the trend would be invalidated is if we get below this wick low here of 56,000. If that happens and we get below the trend line, then obviously we could see some kind of mid-cycle correction. I don't think this is going to be the end for Bitcoin or altcoins because, again, we still have spot Ether ETF. But if we get below this with a candle close confirmed below on the weekly or the daily, I would say that's a major red flag. What I think likely is going to happen, and I'll pop back out here to the weekly for you guys so you can see this. Likely what we're going to see is something like what we saw in mid-2021, where we had this massive dump down 55%. Again, there is a trend line way down here at current day at roughly around 38,000, so I wouldn't count that out. But we see some kind of massive drop, and then it kind of maybe rides the trend line, then takes off towards the end of the year. That could happen. Fed rate cuts usually lead to the yield uninverting, going back to normal yield rates, which typically historically has supported some kind of sell-off in the market, so that could also affect it. But as far as I'm concerned right now, the markets do still look bullish. So we have at least a short to midterm bull signal here, basically the oversold RSI on the daily time frame, which every single time since the bear market lows has led to new highs. The other thing I'd like to point out here is that we are still above this macro trend line here. We got a wick bounce off of it. Last time we had that, it was a hammer candle and it took off to the upside like an absolute beast. We are still also above this support zone. So if we get a candle close below that, obviously that would not be good. And the thing I want to point out here as well is that even on the monthly time frame, okay, not the weekly, we're not even close to oversold territory. We were a little bit here, but it's not really all that drastic. As you guys can see in the past, in 2021, we got like stupid high on this thing, 91. This previous peak wasn't even all that extreme. It was only a 76. We are still within the bull flag. We're still above the support zone. We're still above the macro trend line here. There is actually 2 trend lines, so may not be really so obvious, but once again, on the monthly time frame, we would have to get basically a monthly close below 53,000 or 54,000 at this point to even consider being potentially in a bear market. So as far as I'm concerned, everything does look very bullish. It's kind of our plan to basically immediately start flowing in roughly about 50% of discretionary income into altcoins starting tomorrow. One of the main reasons why, and I want to point this out for y'all, this is actually not the time frame I wanted to look at. So let's take a look at the weekly so you guys can see that we are still kind of chopping sideways from this rising wedge. So theoretically, when the trend's about to end on something and it's like if it's going up, it'll usually chop sideways, not always, but if it's gonna reverse, it'll go sideways first before it goes down, or the inverse is true, it'll go sideways before it goes up. Okay. So we're kind of seeing that right now. So this thing is chopping sideways, been chopping sideways for a few months. If it gets like an extreme amount of selling out of this rising wedge and this resistance zone, I suspect alt season is here. And anybody that's not loaded up, the longer you wait, the more you risk not being able to take advantage of it. So we saw something similar here. Okay, so the trend was up on Bitcoin dominance. It fell off, and then it kind of went sideways. Okay, and then we fell off again. So again, the patterns aren't exactly the same. So we had a bull trend, then a sell-off. But the point I want to make here is that it did go sideways and then dumped off a cliff afterwards. So we're seeing something very similar here on the Bitcoin dominance. The other thing that I'd like to point out, let's see, where is it? So this one is interesting. So I'm actually going to go down here to, I believe it was on the daily time frame. Yeah, so this is a new one. Okay, this is a new addition to the whole crypto technical analysis that we do, but you guys can see crypto total market cap excluding the top 10 cryptocurrencies. This is basically anything minus Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, BNB, Dogecoin, those kinds of things. So you guys can see that we hit oversold here. Just recently double tapped it. Actually, last time we saw this was back here during April. Had a pretty large squeeze, so 35%, although it wasn't all that significant. But if I go out in time here, you guys can see the last time we actually had a real serious oversold one was back here in June of 2023, and pretty much the rest is history. This thing absolutely moonshot. It went up 370%. This is all altcoins, not including top 10. So we've only seen this thing tap oversold territory 3 times in the last basically year. Okay, so that's a major bull signal for altcoins. Also, total 3 is hitting oversold again. You guys can see that last time we had this, the upside was massive, so 23% for altcoins right there, and then we got a couple double taps here. You guys know what happened. I mean, you can look at the charts and see for yourself. Huge move up here, 153%. Then we hit even more oversold here, and the immediate move on that was a little bit less, but still 30%. I mean, 30% gain is good. So Ethereum and Bitcoin, not quite there yet, but the entire total market cap, as you guys can see, also recently hit oversold. Last time we were there, it was way down here, pretty close to just right about before the spot Bitcoin ETFs got approved, and 167% return. So everything is telling me at this point that crypto is likely going to head higher from this point. Whether it plays out like that or not, we'll have to wait and see. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.